4. So in this session, we are looking at vanity presses, some interesting stories to look at there, marketing and cover design. In today's PowerPoint and video, we have the topic outcomes we're going to look at, a quick look at reading and viewing assignments, and then our assignments themselves. A look at our discussion topic, a look at designing a cover and some ideas behind that, and of course our final edits. So, topic outcomes. We are looking at all of those ideas. Obviously, there were 3 big ones. Well, what is a vanity press? How are they functioning in the world of publishing? And now that we've looked at things like hybrid publishing, and we're looking, of course, at self-publishing our own work on Kindle Direct, what is the difference for having a vanity press? Like, what's going on with that? And a really cool point to remember in the midst of all of this learning and all of these different things that we are processing, focusing on God's pleasure in your writing as you figure out your own space there. Remember, we aren't covering all these different ideas to tell you what to pick. We are showing you all of these ideas and giving you insights to help you figure out what your best place is. And of course, part of that is that we're going to practice. So we're doing that Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing, and part of that is that it has to have a book cover. So we're going to create that book cover that meets the criteria set by them. So the same way we talk about things like APA formatting or stuff like that, that's exactly what Amazon is doing. They're telling us what they need and what will fit their criteria for having a work shared there. And finally, we want to complete any final edits to our short story before finalizing it. And there's some key details that we want to look at here in this last run. So reading, there's quite a bit. We have our 2 books that we are finishing up. So our 10th myth, The Life of a Writer is Glamorous. I think already you've seen in our topics. That's not true, right? It's hard work at the end of the day. And of course, with Paige, we are looking at chapters 13, 14, 16, and 20. We also have 2 articles to read. So one down here at the bottom, we're going to look at Amazon. What kind of stuff does our ebook cover image need to include, and what sort of criteria does it need to meet? And for our discussion, as we look at vanity publishing, a terrifying tale of Tate Publishing and Enterprises. As you go through it, you'll see that it was originally published in about 2017, and it's going to conclude in around 2019, and it's going to give us all the details about the court case. So a lot to get to know there. That's a little overwhelming and surprising, which is why we're discussing it. And remember, this is a view of a group, not everyone. And what we're going to watch are 2 videos. They're each about half an hour. So we have a master class with Joanna Penn and how to market your writing. Great points. And don't forget that you also have an entire course about marketing your writing. I believe it's 305. So look forward to that a little bit more as you go into it. So our assignments. We're looking at our discussion, our designing a cover and why, and of course the final edit. So let's look at that discussion first. When we're looking at this idea of vanity presses, we're giving you one of the most horrific examples to start with. But vanity presses have been around for as long as people had a book press. So we're looking at, Gutenberg and the chances to have things published. When we're looking at that, we need to be cautious. We need to be careful because a lot of times you are paying up front as the writer, and you've got to be really cautious about what the contract includes and exactly who's on the other side of that. I noticed in one of the comments an author talked about how she met someone who did really well with Tate Publishing, and that experience led her to also invest with them. And of course, that investment failed for her. And so there are a lot of features to think about, and that's a very important cautionary moment. So talking to people, getting some ideas here of what you would look for in a vanity press. Because it isn't the end of the world. It's not the worst idea. And it just really depends, again, on who we're looking at. So second, we're starting that question of, what should a book look like? What does that jacket look like on our book cover? We are going to brainstorm our ideas and preferences and share them in our discussion thread and ask for advice and offer taste and recommendations and get to know everyone. So here are some tips and tricks. Browse a bookstore. So it could be in person, it could be online. And just say, what do you like? What draws your attention? What do the things you like have in common? What about ones you don't like? What do they have that doesn't seem to be working for you? What about things like color? A lot of this isn't sort of out of the ordinary. Obviously, it's really nice if we can afford a graphic designer and things like that. But look for things like color theory if you want to look into that. You don't have to know absolutely everything, but you can get some good ideas by looking at symbolism and metaphor and things like color theory to see like why, why does McDonald's use red and yellow? Those are really important colors for sparking hunger. So look for those kinds of ideas to get you going. So a little blurb about it. So not only do we often look at cover art and how the text is shared, but they're also often blurbs. So they could be, there could be a little bit about, what is this book about? And there are also blurbs where we get people to say something about it. But let's talk about reality. Cover art and blurbs are about attention. And that means that they're not always true to the content and that they are often aiming for shock, surprise, absolutely anything to grab just a moment of your attention. Think about it. If you only have a moment, like literally a moment, someone is going down the bookshelf at the library, they're looking at the bookshelf at a store, and they are just glancing at all of these covers. So many covers, so much color, so many designs, so many words. Literally just a moment to catch and hold someone's attention. What are you going to do? What does that look like to you? Already, I saw some I had a great conversation with a student about like how she's showcasing what is inside her book with what's on the cover. And I think that's really wonderful and honest and a great approach. But also, it's not everyone. That's not always happening. So what do we want? What is going to be best for how we want to present ourselves and how we want to share? Because not everyone is thinking that kind of stuff. And sometimes the sort of shock value of it, of like, wait, what was that? And then someone actually engages with it and they realize what we are doing. And that moment of shock or surprise can be useful. It's not necessarily a negative thing. It can be a really positive way to pull people in. So lots of questions there to start thinking about, but definitely do your best to check out and sort of see, think of a book you really like and go say like, well, what's the cover look like? A lot of books I like are in multiple iterations over the years, editions. So if I looked at the cover art for hey, let's go with, A Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Let's pick that one. If I start to look at the cover art for the Chronicles of Narnia, I am going to find so many editions since the 50s, and I'm going to find so much different art. Like, what is that looking like? What do I find beautiful and what do I find unattractive about it? Are some of them going to match films and things like that? There's just a whole range of things for one particular set of books. So next we're designing that book cover. Oh my goodness. So we have to figure out like what do we need? It's going to talk about lots of different specifics here because it's going to make sure we are using the right program, the right amount of data and memory and all that kind of stuff. The suggestion is to start with things like Canva or Photoshop. I've definitely known people who went and did photographs. They wanted to do something in the vein of what they were writing, and they couldn't quite find a picture they liked or that they wouldn't have to pay exorbitantly for. That happens. So they actually did photo shoots with friends or family and things like that. And so I've seen really cool stuff. It doesn't have to stop. Obviously, we're turning these around in a week. We're being really fast. So you may want to just grab something that works. But you can start to think about that for your own self. What exactly would you want and what would you be willing to invest in that? So you're going to give me some cover art. Remember, it's just a start. You're not saying that it's absolutely final. You're not saying that it's absolutely perfect for what you want. Like maybe there are some other things you would love to do given time or opportunity or finances. And then you are talking to me about it. Like, why pick X over Y? What does that look like to you? What is your thought process? And then I'm going to share that as well. I'm going to say, hey, I love how you did this, or why did you do that? Like, why not this? And we're having a conversation. It doesn't mean you're right or wrong. It's just saying, hey, let's talk about these ideas and see sort of where they go. So if we go over there, we can make a free account at Canva. I did that. So I'm in the free account. If I try the pro version, I get 30 days, but what do you need to do? You need to make sure you set some alarms so you don't get charged for all of that. So evidently some new stuff is coming in 7 days, and look at all of the options and ideas. It will definitely help me. I just started playing with it yesterday, and I just opened up like the template idea of, what if I want to make a book cover? And then that let me sort of start that process. And it let me start looking through so as you can tell, quite a few ideas to get me going. So you can start with something here and just sort of play with that. You can, like for this one with that great like middle part, that's a great idea. It doesn't mean we have to pick those pictures, but it starts to give us an idea of like what we would want to do with it. And as you can see, there are lots of possibilities there. So play with it and see what you think. You are not obligated to spend hours upon hours on this. You're just exploring some ideas of what's out there so that you can say, okay, I kind of know that, I can maybe make some of this stuff. So, maybe think about investing an hour maximum. Don't feel like you have to really make that perfect cover. You're just exploring, you're just checking stuff out, you're seeing what's out there. Our final project is going to be our final edits. So we're kind of doing the same thing we've done before, where you're taking my edits and you are taking your edits and you are continuing all of those. And then you're looking as well at like Jerry's self-editing checklist. And then you can do that track changes feature for a final time. So I would encourage you to take the edits from session 3 and sort of clear all of those. So accept, remove, alter, do all of that, and then start a new track changes so that it's just clearer. That's not the end of the world if you don't. It's just an idea so that you can really start to see the overall effect. A lot of times there are sort of minor issues with how we've done spacing and things like that with an edit, so it's good in track changes to go ahead and clear them all out and see what's what. And then we want to do it again. We want to start looking at the pieces. So as we're looking at that, remember we had our original piece, then we had our edits that we did, and then we added another section. So now we have 2 sections. Now we're saying, do I want to do that? Do I really want to focus in on the first 2 parts? Do I want to just edit those, revise those? Maybe I do add some a little, but I'm not adding new work. I'm just working on those particular sections. Or do I want to add another section? Do I want to add a 3rd section? If you're writing a collection, you may want to go ahead and do another story that you're working on, and obviously this has less feedback, but I do encourage you to go ahead and send that separately to me and say like, hey, do you have a moment? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, so don't hesitate to send it though. But you are looking at this and you're saying, okay, do I just want to edit what I have? Do I want to keep working on that? And obviously you can add to and change that. Do you want to add a 3rd part, or do you want to write something additional? So nothing really new, and you could just focus on edits. You can focus on adding a whole new section, or you can add a whole new story. All options for you to explore. So part of the process here is just to see what we want to do for ourselves and maybe what we want to hire out. So what do you imagine? How possible is it to create what you imagine? As you're looking at things like editing, as you're looking at things like cover art and publishing, what kind of things do you kind of have an excitement about that I'd like to try that? And what things do you find yourself saying, absolutely not, I do not want to do that myself. I really want to have a team with me for that. Whichever part of that space you end up in is for you to decide and you to create and get the support you need. So that's the aim. What do you want out of all of these different processes? Now that you've gotten a glimpse into what someone else is or could do, and now that you've seen sort of where you're dipping your toe in and seeing what you are creatively possible, what's possible for you, you get to decide what all you want and need. So I hope that you find that to be really informative and exciting. To me, that is one of the most exciting parts. You get to start to see sort of what goes in at every possible level. Some of you already know this, and hopefully we're giving you more ideas as well. But figuring all of that out is a great place to be as you explore and figure out things like vanity presses, marketing, and cover design.